Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today I'll be discussing about Lysistrata's summary. I'll be covering up the context, the plot summary, as well as the themes incorporated within those acts. So let's begin without any wasting any time. Aristophanes Lysistrata. It is a classic Greek comedy written and performed in 411 BCE during the Peloponnesian War. So it's an actual Greek comedy and it's considered as one of the first Greek comedies ever written. It, it was written back during when the Athens and Sparta were actually having a war. It's a humorous as in the comedy, falls under the comedy genre, but it's also sarcastic because it's one of the first bold feminist statement for its time. It showcases the power of women to influence political as well as the social events. So, feminism wasn't even a thing when this play was written. It was a male dominated society. But this play was the first one that brought into the role of women, even in the political as well as the social spheres. Earlier, they were only restricted to the domestic spheres, right? Okay, so we'll begin with the summary. Now, prologue, stands for the introduction in the Greek plays. Now, the play begins in Athens, where Lysistrata, she's a very strong and determined Athenian woman. She has called for a secret meeting of women from various Greek city states. She expresses her frustration with the endless war. Now, this had been going on for a long time in real, and the men who perpetuate, yani the men who wage these wars. She proposes an audacious plan means like बोलते हैं ना औकात के बाहर, that kind of a thing. Very outrageous plan for all the women to withhold sex from their husbands and lovers until they agree. She wanted to negotiate peace, though she was doubtful at first that whether all the women will agree or not, but eventually everyone agrees and they are inspired by Lysistrata's determination. It's also an important characteristic of Lysistrata that she was very well determined as well as she was very witty kind of a woman, right? Now, to strengthen their position, Lysistrata plans to seize, as in stop, the control of Acropolis that houses Athens' treasury, effectively cutting off the funds for the war. So she knew where the funds for Athens was coming. It was none other than Acropolis. Now, Acropolis actually was a sacred place back in those Greek times. It was like a temple. It was the main center where all the funds for the war were coming from, and it housed all the treasury, of course, the money, right? Now, Act 1 is the the women, all the women, come together and they take a solemn, that is sacred oath to abstain from sexual relations with men, no matter how difficult it becomes. It's a thing. Why did they take this oath? To tell that how matter how difficult it becomes, they all will be abstaining from it. Right? Lysistrata emphasizes that their resolve will be tested because men can try every trick to seduce them. Right? The oath is sealed with the sacrifice of wine. Now you'll say, why wine? It was a biblical illusion that offering wine to the god of Athena was like a custom for Greeks. It also symbolized for unity as well as the commitment to a cause. Meanwhile, the older women, led by a chorus of Pyrathines, you need to remember the elder chorus of women and one was the elder chorus of men. They head to the Acropolis to secure it. They successively barricade, that is, restricted themselves inside Acropolis, denying the men the access to the treasury, right? You don't need to remember this chorus of the, it is extra for you, right? I told you for an illusion you can simply write led by the chorus, right? Now, what was the men's response? This is the act 2, right? When the men of Athens discovered the women's rebellion, they are outraged. They're very outraged. A chorus of old men, they attempt to smoke the women out of Acropolis by lighting fires at the gates. So the chorus of men, they attempt to smoke the women out of Acropolis by lighting fires at the gates. However, the women, led by a chorus of older women, they counterattack with buckets of water. And what do? They soak the men, and also they extinguish not only the fire but also their attempt. This is a comedic battle of wits. Basically, it's a relaxation to the short tempered of the scenes that has been going on, and it's a relaxation scene. There is a battle of wits between the two choruses, with each hurling insults as well as threats upon each other. The scene underscores the absurdity of gender conflicts while highlighting the women's newfound agency, right? You also feel the presence of, wittiness in both the sides. You can see the arguments. If you read the play, you can see the arguments that have been presented. They are very witty. Like men is unfolding one insult upon them while they are being counterattacked. So it's a comedy scene, right? Now, the next is the Lysistrata's leadership. He plays a very important role in this act because, as the standoff continues, a magistrate arrives. Now, he also plays a role because why does he play a role? He has no role on his own, but Lysistrata's wit is depicted by the replies which she gives to this magistrate. This magistrate can be seen like a misogynist, he's very chauvinist. He cannot digest that a woman is progressing so good. So as the magistrate arrives with soldiers to regain control of Acropolis, Lysistrata confidently confronts him, explaining the rationale behind the women's actions. Okay, she is the only one who confronts him, and she explains the rationale behind the women's actions. She argues that women who have suffered the consequences of war, okay, she emphasizes that women have suffered the consequences of war for a long time. She says that they have lost their husbands, their sons, as well as their stability, and they are more invested in peace than men who perpetuate violence for political gain, because men will be getting powers. But what are women doing? They have just faced losses. They have lost their husbands, their sons, as well as their stability, right? The magistrate, he dismisses her arguments as hysterical, but Lysistrata and the women, they mock him. They dress him up as a woman, and and they ridicule whom? The magistrate. The inability to see reason. This it's a satire, I told you, of reversal of gender roles, challenges the traditional power dynamics, and it reinforces the women's dominance in the situation. We have seen that already the women are controlling Acropolis. Now we can see this reverse of roles has taken over the traditional power dynamics, and it has also reinforced the women dominance in the situation. Now, the Act 3, it's a struggle that has intensified. As days pass, the women resolves begin to waver. Physical and emotional challenges arise. Physical, why? Because they are withholding sex, and emotional, why? Because they are apart from their husbands. As the women struggle to resist their husbands' advances. Now, one of the example of this is Myrene. One of Lysistrata's ally provides a humorous example of this dilemma. Her husband, Kinesis, arrives at the gate of Acropolis desperate for intimacy, right? She teases him, seduces him. She tries to tease, seduce, pretending to give in to his pleas. She prepares a bed, fetches oil, and even brings a blanket, only to abandon him at the last moment, leaving him frustrated as well as furious. It exemplifies the women's clever tactics, highlighting the men's growing desperation. Right? So this is a very funny scene in which you can see that Myrisis and Kinesis is literally begging on his knees for to her beloved that return to home, at least not for me, for my kid, return to home. We're missing you. She asks him to prepare bed. That okay, if you're missing me so much, get me that oil. Get me. He said I can fuck you in the ground itself and whatnot. And ultimately, she's like, oh, now I'm not in a mood, and Dionysus is left all begging, teary, shattered, and he's all in rage, and he says the men that now it's all over, we should stop and beg, submit to the peace the women want, right? Now the Spartans join the cause. The sexual strikes it spreads beyond Athens. Now we can see it affects the men in other city states like Sparta. We know the war is between Athens and Sparta. The women of Sparta are also protesting. The women of Athens are also protesting. So a Spartan herald arrives complaining about the physical and emotional toil the strike is taking on men. A Sparta man comes to Athens that this has been taking a continuous toll upon the men. His exaggerated descriptions about men's physical discomfort, it's a comic again. It is symbolized by swollen groins, okay? Groins, male genitals, okay? They add to the humor while emphasizing the strike's effectiveness. Now, the Spartan men too, they are now very eager to negotiate peace. Both the parties are now realizing that the war has brought them nothing but hardship and unfulfilled desire. They send envoys to Athens to discuss a truce. Okay? So both the parties are now feeling that this war has actually brought them nothing. It's just the loss of lives, hardship, and unfulfilled desires. They have to stay away from their wives for so long. Therefore, this unfulfilled desires come into play. Now, there are negotiations. With both Athenian and Spartan men ready for peace, a meeting is arranged, under Lysistrata's leadership. She acts as a mediator using her wisdom and diplomacy to bridge the gap between the two sides. In a symbolic gesture, she introduces a beautiful naked woman. Now, why is she doing this thing again? Because she still wants this peace should be signed off very quickly. People are under the influence of this women, they'll be actually more than eager to sign it very quick so that they can return to their wives. It represents the unity as well as the fertility of Greece, to remind the men of what they are fighting for, right? The unity and the fertility of Greece. Athens and Sparta were once together. They actually were like friendly, they had friendly cordial terms, but over the years due to this war they had grown apart, right? Through humor and reason, Lysistrata compels the men to see the futility of their conflict. Futility is like uselessness of their conflict, this war. They agree to end the war and work together to rebuild their cities. The men reconcile. Okay, you can use these good terms for your paper. Acknowledging the women's critical role in bringing about peace. They acknowledge, they appreciate women for bringing about the peace. Now, this is the last thing is about celebration basically. The play concludes with a joyous celebration as men and women they reunite in harmony. The choruses of old women and men they both set aside their differences. They join together in a song and dance. It also symbolizes the restoration of order as well as unity in society, right? Now, Lysistrata, she's hailed like a hero, hailed and she's praised, she's shouted like a hero. Her boldness, intelligence, they both prove that women too have the power to shape the course of history. The comedy ends on a hopeful note with peace restored and love rekindled. The comedy ends on a very peaceful and hopeful note. Both peace and love are rekindled. They are rekindled, मतलब like a candle इससे उसकी बत्ती बुझ जाती है, it ignites again, okay? They are both rekindled, right? Now the theme and analysis, right? First is the anti-war message. Definitely, the core of Lysistrata is nothing but the anti-war message. It is a critique of the Peloponnesian War that had taken place. She uses, Aristophanes, he uses humor to expose the absurdity of prolonged conflict and the sufferings it brings to ordinary people, particularly to women. The play advocates for diplomacy as well as the cooperation as alternatives to the violence. Right? What is it? Because the Peloponnesian War, it was very long war. It had affected a lot of ordinary people, especially the women who had to stay long days and years and months away from their husbands and sons, and ultimately some of them had to give up their lives in that war itself. So this was actually a major harm to women also, right? It advocates for diplomacy and cooperation as alternatives to violence, right? Feminism is a very key role. Now, Lysistrata's leadership challenges the traditional gender roles. She presents women as rational, resourceful, as well as capable of effecting change, right? The play satirizes male dominance. Okay? Satirize, it's sarcasm on male dominance, and they portray men as impulsive. Men are generally impulsive, right? They're short-sighted, while women emerge as the voice of reason, right? Unity and reconciliation. The play emphasizes the importance of unity across divisions. The play is basically emphasizing the importance of unity that we all feel, okay, between genders, city states, or political factions. Lysistrata's vision of unified Greece reflects Aristophanes' hope for a society that prioritizes common good over personal gains or regional interests. Okay, definitely, unity is a major theme. You can see what all has this being done for. It's all to bring unity. He has definitely a vision of a common Greece, and he doesn't want these regional interests to take over the common good. Okay, now there's humor and satire. That's Aristophanes' style of writing. He employs body humor, clever wordplay, as well as exaggerated situations to entertain the audience while delivering his message. The sexual strike, in particular, it serves as a comedic yet effective metaphor. It's a metaphor, okay, for the power of abstinence and solidarity, right? Now, the legacy of Lysistrata, it's a timeless work. It has been written in 411 BCE, and we're studying it in the year 2025. So can you imagine how long has this work survived? They celebrate it for its wit, bold social commentary, and progressive ideas. Its theme of peace, equality, as well as empowerment, they continue to resonate with modern audiences, making it one of the Aristophanes' most enduring plays, right? By blending comedy with political critique, Lysistrata demonstrate the transformative potential of collective action, proving that even in the direct circumstances, humor and unity they can pave a way for change. With this, we come to the end of Lysistrata. For any questions, you can just drop down a comment, or you can just drop me a mail. I'll drop my mail in the description as well. Thank you so much. All the best for your examination.